CAIR burst into the new year with over 10 broadcasts about Dalal Id. CAIR's Jailani Hussein immediately tried to turn it into another George Floyd, even going so far as getting on the national news and equating Dalal Id with George Floyd.
Next tonight, a deadly police-involved shooting in Minneapolis, the first since George Floyd was killed back in May. Protesters demanding answers as authorities quickly moved to release footage from the confrontation.
We are angry right now. We are frustrated right now because we said no after George Floyd was killed, but it didn't take that long until another body fell.
But as more details about Dalal Id's history came to light, Jailani had to adjust his position.
Callan, what do we know about Id's history?
A search warrant and press release from the BCA reveal Minneapolis police set up a gun purchase with Dalal Id the night he died using a confidential informant. The documents say Id was going to sell a gun like this, a MAC-10 high-capacity submachine gun, similar to an Uzi.
Hands up!
Police say when they ordered him out of the car, after he tried to get away, he fired at them, prompting them to shoot. The search warrant says a handgun was in Id's lap, and the BCA says the MAC-10 was in the car. According to the search warrant, MPD officers knew that Id was selling firearms illegally and prohibited from possessing firearms. That stems from a 2018 incident in his parents' Eden Prairie home. Charges in that case say at the time Id was not allowed in the home because he scares the children. But while in the basement where children slept at 1 a.m., he fired a shot into the shower wall. Bloomington police found him sleeping in a car with the gun in his pocket. It was reported stolen out of North Dakota. Court records show Id had been arrested many times and had also been convicted of theft and drug charges. The search warrant says the ATF was also aware Id had a stolen 12-gauge shotgun, and Eden Prairie Police told the BCA about his history. According to their records, Eden Prairie Police have had 19 incidents with Dalal Id and 27 calls to the home on Lee Drive in the last 6 years. The search warrant notes that was also the home of his brother Muhammad Id, who's currently in jail, charged with murder.
Regardless of the criminality or the history, that people are people, and we need to take that into consideration.
Until, finally, he could only fume outside the state capitol.
And we believe in the people of Minnesota. We don't believe in these legislators because they have failed and they are part of the problem. But we believe.
However, new inspiration came from the Capitol riots.
We woke up to an America that for the first time in a long time saw its ugly true face a couple of days ago at the Washington, D.C. Capitol House. We saw what we have been saying over and over and over, the threat of white supremacy that has grasped this nation come to fruition right in front of us.
Even though, try as they might, CAIR has nothing to do with the Capitol riots. CAIR desperately wants to be a part of this story so they can share their expertise on dangerous white supremacists, which, perhaps not coincidentally, are a greater threat than jihad. At least that's what CAIR wants you to believe.
The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, is urging all members of the Muslim community to avoid state capitol buildings and surrounding areas until after Joe Biden's inauguration. The group says this is because of credible threats of violence in the coming week. CAIR is also asking faith leaders to review security plans at houses of worship, especially those near state capitals.
Racial justice organizers say police reaction to the violent mob at the Capitol a stark contrast to how Black Lives Matter protesters were treated by police, especially in D.C. Sarah Ballou, who is executive director of the local Council on American Islamic Relations, says police were heavily armed and had National Guardsmen standing by when they responded to Black Lives Matter protests across the country last summer, and they arrested hundreds of people and broke up crowds.
CAIR Executive Director Zara Billou says she's always felt highly scrutinized.
I've been there with colleagues where we are not able to carry food in our purses through the underground tunnels.
I think those of us who are Muslim, those of us who are people of color, know why this was allowed to happen and know that this would have never happened if 10,000 Black people or Muslims or Latinos had attempted to surround and storm the Capitol building.
CAIR is very, very close to physically to what happened yesterday. For those who do not know, our headquarters in Washington, D.C. is only 2 blocks away from the insurrection that happened yesterday. It is a matter of race. It is the crisis of race. It is the fact that white people have certain privilege and entitlement that they can do anything and they can get away with. But let's face it, this is about race, this is about color, this is about privilege, this is about the rule of law, this is about two systems of justice in this country. White supremacist terrorists in the United States who are becoming and have been the biggest threat to our national security and our existence.
By the 12th, CAIR had found its first target for personal destruction, Corrections Officer Anthony Marlack. Connecticut must fire him because his Facebook wall does not please CAIR.
The Connecticut chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations called for the firing of Corrections Officer Anthony Marlack. They say his posts included a Facebook meme depicting 5 apparently Muslim men hanging from nooses with an offensive caption. Marlack told correction officials the meme was posted in 2018 and targeted members of ISIS, not Muslims in general.
Another case of offensive Facebook posts, this time ones that even criticize CAIR by name.
A recently elected Clackamas County Commissioner is facing calls for his resignation after a local blogger documented dozens of racist and anti-immigrant posts on his public Facebook page.
All new this hour, Fox 12's Simon Gutierrez has more on the content of these posts and the reaction to it.
The comments, which appear to have been taken from Commissioner-elect Mark Scholl's Facebook page, attack Muslims, immigrants, and other marginalized communities. Although there has been no action taken by Clackamas County, there are already calls for Scholl to step down.
One of your constituents dug up some pretty racist and Islamophobic Facebook posts, and now Muslim community leaders want you to resign.
On a website called Documenting Mark Scholl's Racism, a series of posts newly elected Commissioner Mark Scholl appears to have made on Facebook in 2019 and 2020. The posts are critical of Muslims, immigrants, transgender people, and the Black Lives Matter movement. Chris Waller, who lives in Clackamas County, says she compiled the posts and set up the webpage displaying them this weekend.
And I happened to look at his Facebook page, and the instant that I looked at it, my jaw dropped, and I said, I've got to start recording this, because as soon as it gets out that this is out here, he's going to start deleting it.
This is Mark Scholl in a picture from his campaign website. The Iraq War veteran is a brand new Clackamas County commissioner. His Facebook page is shut down now, but not before the inflammatory posts were saved last week. A person who lives in Clackamas County with ties to the local Democratic Party compiled them. Chris Waller says she made it her personal mission to investigate concerns she had about Scholl.
And so I checked, and he did. And I immediately was aghast at what I saw.
What Waller saw were many Islamophobic statements, including Islam is in total conflict with America, with the Constitution, and with the Christian values upon which the USA was founded. And when you interact with a Muslim, you're being deceived. Period. End of sentence. Scholl also takes on immigrants and the Black Lives Matter movement, too, writing, BLM is not about Black Lives Mattering or any other life mattering. BLM is a pawn for the rise of neo-Marxism.
I'm shocked. I'm disappointed. Just reading through those comments, it's hard to get through. It is very triggering. It is very hateful and bigoted.
The Council on American Islamic Relations in Oregon has seen enough. Sahar Miranovich says words have consequences, especially in these troubling times.
We absolutely think he needs to resign. If he doesn't resign, the other commissioners need to take some sort of action.
There are new calls this morning for from the Islamic community for newly elected Clackamas County Commissioner Mark Scholl to resign. It comes after remarks he made on Monday at the Muslim Educational Trust. He apologized for comments he made on social media a year ago, but said he has no plans to step down. The Council on American Islamic Relations held a community conference call last night saying Scholl has to go.
This campaign is far from over. The list of people and organizations calling for Mark Scholl's resignation is only expanding by the day. This will not go away with a quick generic remark of regret.
While the world-famous high school tries to determine what exactly happened, CAIR goes public on television.
Tonight, an Eyewitness News exclusive. The Department of Education in New York City investigating allegations that a teacher at the prestigious LaGuardia High School in Manhattan harassed a student who is Muslim, calling her a terrorist. While the city investigates, the student is turning it into a kind of teachable moment. and organizing other students. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Safan Kim.
Classrooms are supposed to be a safe space for students, but 16-year-old Duha El Kholi says that's not the way she feels behind these doors.
Every time I walked into that classroom, I just felt ashamed of myself and my religion and my identity.
In this Eyewitness News exclusive, Duha, who is Muslim, says it started after a teacher in 2019 allegedly called her a terrorist in front of the entire class at LaGuardia High School on the Upper West Side.
He was like, "Oh, I thought you were practicing how to pick locks." And I said, "I don't need to practice that, because why would I practice that?" And he said, "Because you're a terrorist." Some kids stood up for me and they were telling him to take it back and that's wrong and that he shouldn't have said that.
A DOE spokesperson says, "We are aware of this allegation and it is currently the subject of an ongoing investigation. We emailed the teacher to get his side of the story. He declined to comment." Ahmed Mohammed is the legal director at the civil rights organization CAIR.
We want a fair and impartial investigation into the incident. This is an Islamophobic incident. We want the Department of Education to take it seriously.
CAIR knows nothing about this app, but plays the Muslim card, and so here they are again.
Frustration and disappointment among members of the Muslim community across the Bay Area following the news, first reported by Vice, that Salat First, an app that reminds Muslims of when to pray, was recording and selling location data to a third-party data broker with links to U.S. government agencies, ICE, and the FBI.
The U.S. government is obtaining private and personal information about American Muslims under the guise of national security and surveillance. They have a long track record of targeting Muslims.
This news is particularly enraging for the Muslim community, given intelligence failures that led to the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol just days earlier.
The government is overly scrutinizing some communities and missing, really missing evidence on planning for violence.
CAIR has nothing to do with the NFL, the Jets, or Robert Saleh, but they can't resist the chance for publicity, so here they are again.
To some American football now, and the New York Jets have made history after reaching an agreement in principle to the hiring of Robert Saleh as their new head coach. Saleh would become the first Muslim to take charge of an NFL team, according to lobby group the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Time to have someone fired, this time an elected official, a senator, no less.
Locally, groups like Indivisible Houston and the Council on American Islamic Relations Houston chapter gathered outside the Leland Federal Building downtown.
We're not going to let this go.
Vowing to continue to put pressure on him to step down and asking other elected leaders to step up.
After months of making statements, getting people fired, interfering in police work, cheering on race riots, and in general straining to be relevant, a virtual banquet is called for.
The Council on American Islamic Relations hosting a virtual banquet tonight. The event is called Reimagining Justice, and it focused on the group's work supporting Muslim communities while fighting discrimination and civil rights abuses. Speakers including local Muslim leaders and Governor Pritzker also addressing the group tonight, saying hate has no place in Illinois.
The Biden executive orders were a red carpet for CAIR to come on the news.
Thank you so much. And we hope to have you back on the show. Of course. Thank you so much.
14 times CAIR appeared on TV to talk about the unjust Muslim ban.
And we celebrate what we hope will be a return to American ideals. You know, the ideals that we built this country on, that can be reflected in our policies.
People united will never be defeated.
There was anger.
Day one, Joe Biden came out and he put an end to what was undoubtedly a racist, xenophobic policy.
We're also excited about the opportunity of passing the No Ban Act. This bill will actually make sure that no president in the future can do the no Muslim ban.
We are tired as American Muslims of being seen only through the lens of national security.
Muslims, we don't really want you here in our country. Not even really. We don't want you in this country, flat out.
You know, what does my family, my wife, my son, my daughter have to do with the safety?
Sometimes is more anger of why, what was the reason? What were we trying to fix?
But there was no discussion of the backdrop to the travel ban, such as the San Bernardino shooting, which was at that time the deadliest terror attack on American soil since 9/11. In fact, that was only one of 5 deadly jihad attacks that year, averaging out to roughly 1 every other month. But who remembers them today? Not CAIR. One of the Oregon newsrooms told me that CAIR provided the video of a terrorized convenience store owner. That would explain why the story is as much about Simab Husseini as it is about Brian Miller.
Fox 12's Sarah Hurwitz has reaction now from the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Is that how we do things in America, Afghan? Al-Qaeda? Osama?
An employee at a Southeast Portland Chevron convenience store recorded his attack as he frantically called 911.
I'm a little interested in these two.
Someone hit me.
Family says the employee is a 68-year-old Afghan-American man. The suspect, identified as 43-year-old Brian Christopher Miller, yelled racial slurs, threatened to kill him.
And I'll shoot you in the back.
Oh my God, they destroyed
Threw things, and police say he stole items.
He destroyed the store. Where is cop? Oh my God! Oh my God!
To have the wherewithal to be able to do that in such terror, in such fear and panic, it was fortunate that we were able to capture this, because what would this situation be if it weren't captured on video?
Portland police responded quickly and arrested Miller for first-degree criminal mischief and third-degree robbery. He was released a few hours later and appeared in court Monday. CAIR Oregon Vice Chair Simab Husseini met with the family.
It's difficult. It's painful. You know, you have an immigrant family that arrived here in the early 80s. You feel less American when you're treated like an other.
Husseini says the victim is sore, and ultimately, his family wants justice.
Who knows what's wrong with this man, but this man has hate in his heart. How do you stop that?
Where is police?
Morgan Romero.
Where is police?
KGW News.
Here's another example of CAIR exceeding their brief and getting involved in something that has nothing to do with them. Take note that in the past 48 months, CAIR never confronted a violent Muslim or obnoxious imam. Instead, they run around defending the honor of black people. It's time to start calling them out on this.
A civil liberties group is condemning racist messages scrawled inside the Campus Y at UNC. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, released a statement about it today. On Facebook, the Campus Y reported some of the vandalism suggested threats to safety with hateful messages pertaining to women, Jews, and people of color. Anti-Semitic symbols were found, and a racial epithet was found on a whiteboard over the weekend. The university says hateful speech is not tolerated on campus. Police say they have a warrant out for an arrest, but they have not identified the suspect by name.
Considering the documented ties to terror fronts, seeing them finding solidarity with convicts is a little alarming.
Biden is also ordering an end to the use of privately run prisons where corporations or individuals may profit. The move essentially returns the Justice Department to the same position held during the Obama administration.
The people who are most impacted are Black and brown individuals. And so to make sure that we're stemming and stopping the infrastructure that continues to allow for incarceration to be profitable is very, very important.
Georgia Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's continued rhetoric and past actions have resulted in a call for her expulsion. California Democrat Representative Jimmy Gomez says he's going to introduce a resolution to try and force the newly elected Congresswoman out.
The Georgia office of the Council on American Islamic Relations is asking the public to support this effort to kick her out of office by calling their local officials and also asking it as well. They are citing the violent and threatening far-right comments that she has made over the years. Reporting live in Atlanta, I'm Brittany Yedney, CBS 46 News.
So 4 times a month, or roughly once a week, CAIR gets on TV calling for someone's job. If this is how it's going to be, then we deserve to know who CAIR is. Where did they come from? What were they doing before they formed CAIR? Who are their friends? What court cases have they been involved in? Where does their money come from? What have other people said about them? And why are they on TV so much? Everyone is waiting for answers in this very strange story. But CAIR has nothing to do with this and is only hanging around looking for trouble.
The Council on American Islamic Relations wants to know more.
We need to know why this happened. If the police believe it wasn't a hate crime, the police need to explain what the motive was.
His organization contributed to the reward in this case. Those who lived in this home were Muslims, Black and from Africa.
Wasn't it less than 3 weeks ago we saw them doing a similar thing in Minnesota, where they were trying to second-guess the results of a police investigation?
The Colorado chapter of the Council on Islamic American Relations called on law enforcement to immediately provide more information about the crime, including the possible motive for the murders of that Senegalese family.
The Council on American Islamic Relations Colorado chapter issuing a statement saying, quote, although we welcome the news that law enforcement authorities have arrested suspects allegedly involved in this horrific crime, the impacted family, the Colorado Muslim community, and the broader public need answers as soon as possible, starting with the suspected motive for this attack.
Despite the police saying this is not a biased crime, that is what CAIR wants it to be.
It was absolutely terrifying to understand that these individuals were still out running around in the community and have been since that attack.
Krista Cole is with the Council on American Islamic Relations in Colorado. The group is calling for Denver police to release more information about why the suspect set fire to the home. She says it's a case that's made the entire immigrant community uneasy.
What is the motivation? Can someone explain why these individuals circled the house and lit it on fire in the middle of the night?
Police have said they do not believe the crime was bias motivated. Cole says they want more information.
You just look at the type of attack it was, and immediately, the things that start coming to mind for motivation are, well, they're from Africa, they're immigrants.
Sources told Denver 7 3 teenagers were apparently carrying out retribution for a drug deal gone awry, but targeted the wrong house.
Look at how the spokesperson for the community makes CAIR look like the bunch of amateurs they are.
So I'm going to now ask Papa Dia, the founder and president of African Leadership and primary spokesperson for the family and the Senate, to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
We have here the Consul General of Senegal that flew in from New York. We also have Jibril young brother, his name is Musa. He also would like to say a few words.
CAIR ends the month with a completely synthetic story that is supposed to leave the impression that the Capitol rioters are trying to kill CAIR and that the FBI is involved.
And the Missouri chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations says it received a social media threat that was filled with hate speech and racism.
Now the FBI is involved.
Well, several groups, including the Council on American and Islamic Relations, better known as CAIR, are on high alert following the Capitol attacks and the domestic terror warning.
The Capitol attacks and domestic terror warning have several groups, including the Council on American Islamic Relations, better known as CAIR, on high alert. The FBI is now investigating a racist threat sent on Instagram on Wednesday to the Missouri chapter of CAIR.
Groups like CAIR are now on high alert following the Capitol attacks and warnings of rising right-wing extremists, and say most of the threats followed the recent presidential election.
The Missouri chapter of CAIR says it received a threat on social media, and now the FBI is investigating. CAIR is America's largest Muslim civil liberties advocacy organization. It has a mission to protect civil rights and promote understanding of American Muslims. The group says on Wednesday it received a racist threat from a hate group through Instagram.
Someone saying that, asking his followers to come with him for Muslim hunting. We've been noticing anti-Semitism, anti-Islamophobia, and racist comments being on the rise recently nationwide. And this type of rhetoric is really unacceptable and must end. I report that directly to the FBI St. Louis field office. And within a minute, I got a call from an FBI agent, and they told me that they're taking this matter seriously. They will investigate.
Now, the FBI St. Louis office released a statement about the incident. It reads in part, the FBI takes threats of violence seriously. When a violent threat is motivated by an offender's bias against a race, religion, ethnicity, national origin, disability, gender identity, or sexual orientation, it can be considered a hate crime. Hate crimes are not only an attack on the victim, they are meant to threaten and intimidate an entire community.
It is very significant that we don't get to see what the threat said or who it came from. It's not even clear if the station has seen the threat. All we get is something about hunting Muslims. Well, this is ironic because CAIR has been hunting Americans, particularly white people, on TV for the past 3 years. Contrast CAIR's undefined virtual threat with real-world harm, such as losing your job. Every month, like machine work, CAIR denounces someone or tries to pressure them out of a job. It is uncanny how consistent they are in calling for the firing or arrest of people who have misspelled a Starbucks cup, wore costumes, said the N-word, have a noose, written graffiti, criticized Rashida Tlaib, or said something on social media. And it's been going on like this for years. Using the word hunting is apt here because CAIR uses expensive databases like Meltwater and TVIs.
Please share with us a little bit about the valuable and expensive monitoring of the media that you do. And we'd also love to hear about the extensive media database that you work from.
We have a number of databases. We have Cision, we have Meltwater, we have TVIs, all of these. If people are in the public relations business, they're familiar with these, and they don't come cheap.
To monitor the media for stories about white people having a drunken outburst in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
The white man was arrested here in Stevens Point after police say he harassed and used racial slurs against Hmong people wearing face masks. Incident in Stevens Point receiving national criticism from the Council on American Islamic Relations,
while simultaneously ignoring any stories about violent Muslims or obnoxious imams.
Yeah, Natalie, the suspected terrorist went to flight school. The FBI says he also practiced breaching a cockpit door, all part of an alleged plan to try to hijack a commercial airliner and fly it into a skyscraper.
It's hard to feel sorry for CAIR when we don't know any more about the threat other than something about hunting Muslims. If anyone is doing any hunting around here, it is the Council on American Islamic Relations.